I think that perhaps all of you at some time during your early lives had some mystery house located in your neighborhood, a house that you were afraid to pass after dark, or perhaps it might have been a house that some kid told you was full of sliding panels and secret passageways. When I was a kid living in Monongahela on Chest Street near 5th, diagonally across the street from our house was the old John Markle stable. A stable on the back of their lot was practically every person had. And that meant that every evening, when you sat on your front porch, your main object of vision was a stable with an aroma that this present age knows nothing about. The Markle stable was much larger than the usual ones. It had 5 stalls, 3 for horses and 2 for cows, a carriage house for 2 or more vehicles, and around on the 5th Street side was a shed for the wagon. A corn crib was close to the stable. Down on the corner of Main and 5th Street was the old Markle homestead, a 50 by 50 3-story brick. Between the house and the stable, along 5th Street side, was a high 6-foot board fence, painted red. Year after year, I kept looking at the house, hoping that someday I would sit or get a chance to get inside and explore. And one day it happened. It was in 1936. The last one of the Markle family living in town was Pauline Markle, and one of our old school teachers died. I don't remember her age, but I do know that she was teaching school in 1887. They had a sale of the household goods, and instead of having an auction sale like they do today, you were allowed to roam from room to room. And if you happened to see something that you wanted to buy, you just carried it to the fellow in the front room downstairs, and he set the price, which was generally very reasonable, and you bought it. This house had 6 large rooms on the first floor, with a wide hall and front stairway in the center. At the right of the hall was a double parlor, with high ceilings and sliding doors. Just back of these 2 rooms was a stairway leading to the 2nd floor. Back of that was a large room used as a library. On the left of the hall was a large living room. Back of the living room was the dining room. Then another stairway going to the 2nd floor, and back beyond the stairway was the kitchen. The 2nd floor had 6 large bedrooms. A bedroom added in later years, and 2 flights of stairs going to the 3rd floor. The 3rd floor had 1 bedroom, and the rest was used as an attic, large enough for a circus. In those days, they didn't do as much for halls as on the 2nd floor. They'd build bedrooms, then enough back stairways so you could sneak up to your room late at night without any of the old folks hearing you. If I had known as much about antiques then as I do now, I could have been in my story, I could have been in my glory. But at that time, I was only looking for old pictures of our town and cigarettes and coffee cards. So it wasn't very long until I got up to the attic. The Markle family never destroyed anything. There were old boots with holes in them, certain broken umbrellas, harnesses, saddles, coal buckets, everything that you could think of. Lots of this stuff was in boxes, arranged neatly along the wall. When I arrived, people were going through these boxes, and if they didn't find anything they wanted, then they'd throw the main open box out into the floor and then get into another one. They were looking for old jewelry. I sat down on the floor and started to hunt through the rubbish. I found old pictures, advertising cards of the 1880s and 90s, a cigarette and Arbuckle's coffee cards. I even found some old school papers dated 1892 with my sister's name on them. After seeing this mess, I made up my mind then that when I died, people were not going to throw away my things around like they did at this sale. So when I got back to the office that day, I started to make a set of scrapbooks. I had been saving pictures of our town since I was a little kid, so I decided to make a pictorial history of Monongahela. When I had 6 books completed, I started to take them around to the older families in town. I'd leave 2 books at a house, and then in a couple of days, I'd go back for them. The family where I left the books generally had pictures to give me, ranging from a dozen up to 30 or more. One family gave me 60, another 75, another 87. The largest number I ever received from any one family, was 129. Each book I made contained an average of 225 or more pictures. And seeing each picture that was given to me, I always printed the name of that person also who had donated it. It takes about a month to complete a book. I now have 34 complete books and enough pictures to finish at least 6 more when I get the time. The oldest thing I have in my book is a deed on Pigeon Creek, just above town, dated 1787, when they marked the boundary lines by certain trees, such as a certain oak or hickory or elm, etc., on the corner.
What else do you know about your grandfather's? Did he leave anything out that you know?
He had only that he had so many other interests. He collected cigarette cards and coffee cards, and he had huge collections. One of his collections of cigarette cards that dealt non-sports was the largest in the United States. He collected stamps, and I still have 3 huge cartons of stamps. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I don't know what I'm going to do with them anyhow.
What do you think your grandfather would want to be the purpose of these books in the long run?
Well, he had been collecting. He was a collector, as I said, and he had been collecting all these pictures, and he had to do something with them and put them together in a logical way. And so he thought that collecting them in scrapbooks, and nearly 40 of them, that you would be able to go through them and you'd have a clear thought of how Monongahela had originated and how it had progressed. Mm-hmm. And he was doing it for the city of Monongahela.
They've been preserved in many ways. I wonder what will be next. I'm anxious to see how they'll ultimately have their purpose.
I am too. Well, as I said before, there are so many avenues for research into what happened and who was it, but not always seeing who was involved. And with these photographs, you say, oh, is this what this guy looked like? You see what went on around him, and maybe there are a series of photographs of him and his family, or her and her family.
So research and using them in the future is a really important thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We're also looking with our Main Street program in how some of the information can be helpful to facade projects, to restore buildings, but also we've talked about maybe gathering some more photos, because your grandfather died in 1961. So there wouldn't be anything in the photo albums and the scrapbooks after maybe even sometime before that.
Mm-hmm.
So the last 50, 60 years aren't covered.
That's right. There's a lesson to be learned then.
Yeah. What else do you want to tell us about your grandfather?
Oh, I think I've told you everything. He was involved with so many things. Like I say, he collected coffee cards and advertising cards with every store that you went into, and gave you a card with a picture on of something that they sold, or just a nice picture of something, and he collected these, and he put those put these together on on sheets of cardboard, and they were at the Union Bank in Pittsburgh. They were displayed for some time, and I have them now, and I'm ready to talk to our library here to display all of these cards there.
Which are not Monongahela related.
They're not Monongahela related, but they show what it was like. I mean,
Yeah.
historical is, we can say, well, these were the people involved, and this was what was going on. But historical means so many other things,
Yeah.
that you have to know what times were like throughout the country when something was on.
I always thought there were 4,000 photographs in the 42 scrapbooks. But your grandfather said an average of 225, so I calculated again, and that's 8,000.